Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. Okay, I've finished my last Roxy Creations prompt for the Stitchery journal for June. So I've got it sitting in my book ready to go. I also did a second one, if you recall, and I had thought about popping it on the cover, but after I finished it I decided that I wouldn't. My owl is pinned into position, but I haven't stitched it yet. He's just sitting there for now until I sort of work out my layout in its entirety. So at the moment, these are my next two pieces. Whether they stay in these positions, at the moment I sort of like them side by side. So I'm pretty happy with them. This was the one that I was considering for the front cover, but I've decided since that I'm gonna, as I said, pop it through the journal itself. So that was a scrappy butterfly that I'd made previously in a series of videos called Scrappy Embellishments. I have a playlist in my channel so you can have a look at how I pieced together these butterflies. The background was pretty simple this time. I had that piece of Tim Holtz fabric and I just did a running stitch across it. Wherever there was some other fabrics, I either did some seed stitch, some quite large ones, or some small ones, especially up around the antlers. You can see all that little seed stitch and then the lace at the very top. There was a piece of music fabric there. That's the calico or muslin popping through from behind, as well as there and down that side. So it's certainly, even though it was a background fabric and I built on top of it, it certainly looked okay in the end as being part of my design. For something a little bit different, this piece of fabric, this rectangle here, that was from a pack of fabric I got from Rachel. It's a vintage hemp. I ended up stitching quite a thick stitch overcast on the edge of it, and I really like the effect. It sort of brought it forward in the panel and sort of highlighted it, which I wanted to do. It's sort of a special piece of fabric, that, so I sort of wanted to sort of raise it from the background. And I think because the muslin or calico in behind didn't actually have anything over it, and then the fabric with the music was here, it sort of did create the effect that there was a bit of height there. Then down the bottom, I didn't do too much more to it other than I found a message here, enjoy the journey, which very much applies to not only this butterfly as he's taking off into the environment that he's heading in, whatever that may be, being lace, I'm not sure what environment, but this journal and this stitchery process has been a journey. It has taught us so many things. It's not only just the pieces we're working on, but how to build a journal out of all of these pieces, somewhere to keep them all, somewhere to keep them dust free and safe. So it really has been a journey. So I thought that was quite poignant, and I believe that is from a Tim Holtz pack. I think I've had it a little while and it's one of those things that I've been hoarding, and I believe I've still got the whole set there, and so I sort of flipped through them and that was the one that jumped out at me. So I've popped that there as my message, nice and simple, and I'm pretty happy with the way that that looks. Now it may end up there, but I doubt it. I think I'm going to keep it as a panel and just include it into the journal itself. But you never know. I have some Tim Holtz fabrics that I've been stashing for years, and I really need to get them out and have a little look. And there's one there that has birds and nests and things. So I'm thinking if I get it out, add it to the cover, then I might use some of those pieces through the rest of the panels, because technically June is finished and the heart was the last prompt and dyed and painted fabrics. But I've got room, so I'm going to keep going, and I'll still be doing the Christmas one as well, so lots of stitching in front. So let's talk about the heart. I ended up doing a lot of seed stitch. So at the top there, around that embroidery, I did lots of seed stitch. I then added some little beads just there and there. I also embellished the little leaves a little bit more with some wool yarn that I had used down the bottom here with these little painted flowers. I put all wool pistol stitches right through here, sort of creating a little path into these very tall daisy-like flowers that I originally painted and then embroidered over the top of them. I added a little bit of pink here. It just seemed like it was very square in this corner, so I ended up finding a snippet of this lace, and it's the same lace that's in this butterfly, so it sort of helped tie it all together, hence why I think this will be a layout in itself. Down the bottom here I just had a piece of fabric that had these roses on them. I didn't embellish them, I just seed stitched around them. I did consider stitching them and putting some like French knots and things like that, but I sort of felt like I'd done enough, and I didn't. It doesn't mean that I won't come back and do something in there. This here was just a cluster of bits and pieces that were around on my desk, so buttons and beads. That pink lace here had a border which I put here, so I snipped that off, had this border piece with a little bit of these scallops sitting on it because I'd pinched them obviously for the butterfly a month or so earlier. So in amongst it I also had these little X's that you can see on the lace, and that's how those two X's came to be. So that's definitely a favourite of mine, is getting a beautiful piece of lace and having a good look at what is in that lace and then breaking it apart and using different elements around your piece. So that was a lot of fun when that sort of all came to be. I put a few crystals and beads in there with the buttons, some circular pieces of the calico with just a French knot in there to create little rosettes. So it's just a little cluster of yumminess. That's a full round doily motif that I've just folded, not quite in half, it's sort of just up a little bit, so it creates sort of a little hanging textured piece. So just a little cluster. The heart itself is part of the Scrappy series, which I think I've already spoken about, and the Scrappy Heart, Scrappy Butterfly, it's sort of all part of that series I did a couple months ago. Now up the top here, this was quite a challenge. This ticking for a while just didn't seem to mesh together with everything, and I even think someone commented about it that it was something that they couldn't quite see it working either, and I totally agree. And it wasn't till I started embroidering it with some pink, and it seemed to push the ticking back into the background, so it was no longer this stripy blob that's sitting at the top here. So I did some pistol stitch, I did some feather stitch, some lazy daisy, just some running stitch. It just sort of brought a bit of this soft pink through the actual ticking. I then had this snippet of lace on my desk and some little flowerets from another project. So they all ended up in this space, a little bit of the pink fabric. And then I found the word cherish in amongst my things. So that brought in a little pop of the blue as well. And there is blue down here on this. There was blue pistol stitches in amongst my flowers. So there's sort of this hint of blue through it, but predominantly it's pinks and whites, creams. So really happy with the piece, really happy with the way it's come together. So at the moment I am thinking I'm going to stitch it into the book here. And yeah, it'll be, I think, part of this signature. So I've got plenty more that I can do. Now, you would have seen how I've made these tabs, or the start of making these tabs, in a video that's already aired, and everyone's been asking me how I'm going to stitch these signatures in. I do have a video coming, but I think you will see this before that even goes to air. So I just thought I'd mention now, in case you're wanting to sort of do it yourself and you've got to this stage and you're wondering what I'm going to do. The main thing is working out your distances here with some dots to show where your signatures are going to sit. So measure it, divide it by 3 or 2, depending on how many signatures. I've only allowed 2 signatures, but I think I'm going to fit 3 into this. I think that extra little bit of width that I was missing in my first journal is going to allow me to get that 3rd signature in, which would be fantastic, even more stitching. So once you've made those marks of where the signatures will sit, you then do the same in the center of your piece. Now what I did with the last journal is I actually folded that out so I could see roughly where the dots were on the tabs, and then I could put the dots on the actual fold line of the signature. And once you have those dots marked, because I'm doing it actually on the inside of the signature, you can then open up the signature again. You will have now your dots visible here, which will match the dots visible here. And the next stage is simple, but it is a bit fiddly. So I'm going to have my string in the center here. So my needle will go through here, have a little peek through that dot there. Then I'm going to fold it over, bring the needle out, back in, coming through here, back into there, and then of course coming up through the center, and then I will be able to knot it off. So that's the principle. I wish I could show you properly now, but I just don't want to yet, because I'm hoping I'm going to get a third signature in here. I've only cut enough fabric to do the two, but I think I'm going to get a third into that gap. Having said that, I do very chunky embroidery and collaging of fabrics and laces, so it might get thicker than I think it's going to get, if that makes sense. And I only get the two signatures in. But when it comes time to actually do it, I promise I will do a video for you so you can see the stitching in of the signatures. But you know, it is something I think you could probably figure out with a bit of measuring and a few well-placed dots, and then do the same on the signature, and then very carefully, you know, through your dot, through your tab, bring it through the other side, and then come up on the bottom of that tab, pull your needle through, back through your signature, and now you've got your thread here that you can just knot it off. Now I think that's probably the best I can do without physically showing you, but it probably will be enough to actually go, oh yeah, I know what she means, and at least have a go. And like I said to someone in a previous comment, it's needle and thread. It's so easy to unpick. So if it looks like it's not quite right and it's not level with the top of your book, you can just snip the threads and have another go. It's not like glue where it's, you know, permanently in. And we're not using a sewing machine, which you could, but if it was wrong, you'd have to unpick it. I'm going to use a needle and thread, but so it's quite easy to fix if it just looks a little bit, you know, skew with. So that's my plan anyway. If that helps you, by all means, you know, carry on and stitch them in. This is book number 2, so I sort of have already done that in my previous journal. I just don't think I actually physically showed me doing it, but I promise I will on volume 2. I'll actually stitch them in on camera. Okay, I will leave it at that. Thank you very much, Rachel and Sarah, for guiding us through the projects. Thoroughly enjoyed it, to the point that I've got volume 2 and plenty of space to keep creating some panels. So I can see volume 3 in my future. It's just been so much fun, and it's just such a great place to put treasures that we've inherited from family, and just some little stitcheries we do in the future. It's just somewhere we can store our pieces, I guess. So love the concept. It's a fantastic way of adding another form of journaling to our journaling repertoire that we're all playing with. Okay, everyone, I shall leave it at that. Enjoy the next steps that the girls give us, which is Christmas. So can't wait. And like I said, as I do more, I'll turn on the camera and we'll slowly build volume 3 together. Okay, everyone, look after yourselves. Bye.